And we are now live on the Doctor of Stuff channel. I am your host, Doctor of Stuff. As a precursor to everything that we're going to talk about here, neither myself nor the real Randy Chavez are financial advisors. Nothing we say here should be construed as financial advice. These are just our opinions. This is for entertainment purposes only. We're just here to have a fun time and dig into our thoughts on the state of OMI and VeVe and what's going on there. And also, I am not a real doctor, but I would love it if you could hit the like and subscribe button. Also, follow us on this on the socials. You got down there in the comments below the real Randy Chavez Twitter account. He also is one of the hardest working YouTubers I've ever seen. I mean, just the amount of content, sheer content that he puts out is phenomenal. And we're going to get into how he's able to do that here. But again, if you haven't hit the like and subscribe button, please do so. And without further ado, let me introduce my amazing guest, the real Randy Chavez. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I like that song that's popular on TikTok. I'm good. Yeah, I'm feeling all right. You know, that one, it's a good day. Today is the 2-year anniversary of when I retired. So this is a very, very special day for me. So happy to be here, celebrating this with you, exploring what it means to be part of the VeVe YouTube firmament. And I'm just pumped. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit too about your retirement. I saw that tweet. So first and foremost, congratulations on that. That is amazing. I myself am not retired yet, and I'm definitely still working for the man for the foreseeable future. But hopefully, crypto and NFTs and this stuff can fast track some of that opportunity there, right? But so I've done this series, Randy. Like in this, you're my second guest, and I appreciate you being the second guest. The first one was Crypto Rain, but I wanted to do this series of the VeVe influencers because I believe that long term VeVe is going to make it, and I want to start documenting the stories of the VeVe OGs that became influencers in the space with VeVe, and kind of like that backstory. And I think it would be so fun just to have like one space where people can go and be like, if VeVe makes it big, right? And they recognize all these people and be like, oh, like I want to hear their story, and they can come to this channel. And so what I'd like to ask you, I'd love for you to kind of go back in time and tell us before you got into crypto, before you got into VeVe, like what were you doing first? And then what got you into crypto and what got you into VeVe?
Sure. So it was 2017. I'd just gotten out of the military in December 2016. So I decided to go to school, and I wanted to be I want to be an X-ray technician because I had done that in the veterinary field before I joined the military. I had like 9 years experience in that. I was like, okay, veterinarian stuff doesn't really pay a lot unless you like own your own practice. So I didn't want to go to school for 7 years. It's like, okay, I could do it on humans. It'll be easier, assuming most patients won't try to bite me or scratch me. And I've done it before, and I can go from being a symbol of conflict to a symbol of comfort. And then when I decided to go and do that, I just hated it. It was not fun. I was like, okay, well, maybe after, eventually I graduate, and after like 6 or 7 years, I can make like 90 grand a year. So during the summer, I got a job at this private bank. The reason I got it, I was working part-time with my friend Dean. He was IT guy. He runs wires everywhere, and he installs computers and Wi-Fi and stuff. So I was just helping him carrying stuff, and we gone to this place where there was a bunch of numbers on the board. I was like, "What is this place? This is interesting. I love numbers." And he's like, "I don't know. Like they sell money." And I was like, "What? This is very curious." And I meet this guy Dan, Daniel Hardwick. He's been on the podcast, like a brother, amazing dude. And he says, "Listen, we do loans. They're very high risk. For the most part." We'll start you off just answering phones. We'll have you transfer these particular business orders that we get to another rep, and then we'll show you how we do things. So we go and we get I get a couple people on the phone, and then like the first day I'm there, like someone's teaching me to go over like banking statements to see what their revenue is, what they're spending on, what their average daily balance is. I was like, do these numbers look a little off? And like it was moved ever so slightly, so people were trying to commit. So what is it when you try to fake your bank statements? When you try to
fraud. Yeah, fraud.
Yeah, I don't know like what type of fraud. Is that a felony when you're going trying to get a loan?
Yeah, absolutely, they can be prosecuted for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, and I was like, do these look a little off to me? And he's like, and one of the guys was, yeah. So immediately identifying fake banks, and I was like, have you done this before? I was like, no. But I just love numbers, and I got that OCD stuff. So I went and did that for several years, doing what you would do is they would get maybe, I don't know, $15, $30, $100,000, whatever they would get as a loan. And we would get commissions on it because we would send it out to a bank, whatever it was, and they would do it. And these loans we would get a commission like 2-3%, whatever it was. And I would get a portion of that. But what happens was that for high risk lending, you can go up to 24.99%, same as high risk credit cards. But if we're referring out to other banks, we only get a couple points on it. If we go and we do our own bank, which my friend Lou had a bank that he went through, and it was completely in-house. We put our own money into it. So instead of getting, 2 or 3%, we would get the whole, 24%. And sometimes when people only needed bridge loans, they would get it for, I don't know, we would give them a discount because a lot of banks, when you prepay early, they charge you like a penalty, which is so dumb. We go and we gave them a discount, and we would get maybe 20% in like 3 months. It was ridiculous. It was great. And because I was putting my own money in, and we would get paid back weekly instead of every month. So you put in, $1,000, and you make 1,300 back in, on average, let's say 6 to 8 months, and maybe like 1,250. But as you go and you get paid back weekly, you'll get like $100, couple $100 a week, whatever it is. You'll get you could roll that into other deals. So before I knew it, I was making out of my aging receivables like a couple grand a week. Towards the end, it was like $8,000 a week, which was ridiculous. But it was I immediately said, all right, I'm not going back to school. I started my own business within like 2 weeks of doing that. And I did that for years. And that's what I did before I got into crypto, before I just started doing this. So I know it's a really long-winded response. I know we don't have like all night, but that's how it started. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You and I will have to have a separate conversation about that when you're saying that your friend was, had his own bank and how that worked. I mean,
he didn't have a bank charter. It's just the funding that went through. He would just do the loans. So they would just basically copy and paste contracts from like whoever. Every single bank has like their own contracts, but they're all pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Fascinating. That's cool. Okay, so you've been doing this. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it hard money lending but something similar, making really good bank on that. Then what led you from that into crypto?
It was, I'm always looking at trying to get the best ROI, like the best return on investment. And, before I got into crypto, I'd had some stocks. I didn't really know too much about finance before I had this job. So my mentor, Daniel Hardwick, decided to go and say, hey, I want to give you a couple of names, buy these right now. And then, do your own research on them, come to your own conclusions. He gave me the most of, like it was Apple, it was Roku, it was Uber, a bunch of like big names that were doing fairly well. And Tesla was one of them. And I went into, and this was like 2 years after I had gotten this, after I'd started like the job. I was going into heavily into the VOO and the SPY, just because he says like that should be like your main thing. That's, you're steady. That's your nut, that's your goose egg, and then everything else is just whatever. Like, okay. And I looked into Uber, and that was fine. I looked into, I think, one or two other companies, but when I got into Tesla and I recognized that it was the better ROI than pretty much anything that I was looking at, and being super undervalued. And then, Elon talking about Doge and Bitcoin, I was like, oh, okay, now the world's smartest man is talking about crypto, I should probably pay attention. And I just looking at the rate of returns that you get after a few years, and that's just mostly with Bitcoin, not including the other alts. That kind of got me looking into it. But I didn't really know it as it was very hard in New York to try to get crypto at the time, because it was I don't know, they just like wouldn't let you. You wouldn't. I think Coinbase wouldn't allow you for like years. And then I really got into it when Earth 2 came around in 2020, and they were looking for they were teasing that their crypto was going to be on GoChain. There was a bad actor in Earth 2 that has been a bad actor elsewhere as well, that had tried to trick or get Earth 2 to get them to go on GoChain. They almost did. They didn't. They realized that this person was a scammer. And I was like, okay, well, I'm looking on GoChain for a really low cap, high volume or low cap crypto that had a lot of supply. And one of them happened to be OMI. It's like, oh, okay. And this guy, Earth 2 Mastery, who's still around, he hasn't made a video in a while though. He made videos on OMI. I was like, okay. And all right, what's this VeVe thing? And then I found that, and then it just went from there. That's kind of how I got into it.
I am extremely like, for someone who did a lot of analysis right into Tesla and obviously into Elon, and then like what brought you in was Dogecoin, which actually Dogecoin brought a lot of people into crypto, but like, oh man, Dogecoin, it was, I did quite a bit of research into Dogecoin, and yeah, like during kind of the whole GameStop, whatever you want to call that, debacle or awesome like strategy by Wall Street Bets and all of that stuff, right? I actually did a deep dive into Dogecoin, and I'm like, this is a meme coin, like literally made as a joke. But I'm like, Elon Musk is talking about it, and this thing. So I bought it at like I think around 2 cents. Like I bought it at 2 cents through Robinhood, right? And then I put a decent amount in, and then literally within like an hour, it had gone to like 5 or 6 cents, right? And like flipped it, and I was just like, that's insane. And then I went and I was like, all right, well, I got to get into some GameStop, and not just GameStop. There was another stock at the time, AMC. Yep. So I bought some AMC stock as well, and then Robinhood froze. You could purchase it, but you couldn't sell.
Yeah.
And the corruption that went on there, that really got me. And that's when that was also part of the, as I was diving deeper into crypto and just the whole ethos of Web3 and self-custody and decentralization and the importance of that, because when the big whales with the power are starting to get hurt, right? Like they can do a lot of things to shut down a lot of stuff so that they stay in power. And, but that's funny to me that Dogecoin brought you in there. Okay, so Doge brings you into VeVe. What did you start doing in VeVe? Like what drew you into VeVe, and like what has been your strategy in VeVe collecting? Have you flipped much at all? And like, are you still in it? Obviously, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but like the Master Collector program and what's going on there. So like, what was your journey into the VeVe app and going forward there?
I went and got the app in February of 2021, because that's when I was finding like the OMI thing. I was like, okay. And I had heard of like NFTs from NBA Top Shot, like, X amount of months prior. And I had asked this guy, Brandon, like, what do you think of this? Like, you're really big into sports. Like, is this something that people are like doing? And the first video I saw on it was actually like a FUD piece. So it was like, this is BS. This is horrible. Don't buy any NFT NBA Top Shot stuff. And I was like, wait a minute. It seems like there's something there. It seems like and that was my collector mind going into it and just owning a piece of history. So I was like, and he had said other people were into it. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something about this, but I wasn't 100% sure, because stuff was still in the market. Like I could have bought a Todd. I could have bought so much good stuff, super cheap prices. But it took me like a month or two before I even bought anything. I don't know if I still bought in season 1, and I bought some other stuff. I wound up getting a Todd, I think, for 400, which was good at the time. And I had when I found out that Alfred Arkan was the head of licensing, I was like, oh, like I immediately screamed, I freaked out, and I called my friend down. I was like, hey, sell everything you have right now, get this OP token. And then I started selling everything. This is literally right after I retired, so I had just finished acquiring, like, in February of 2021, this trophy Kangas. Like, I had another business that I started in 2020, literally like 2 weeks before the pandemic. It was god awful. Thankfully things worked out, and I had a lot of money, but I actually think I made more money in Pokemon than I did anywhere else. And that was the catalyst for me going really into the token. But you asked about OMI. So going into OMI, or going into VeVe, at first it was just collecting everything, like, gotta collect them all.
Yeah.
And then it went to flipping for a little bit, deciding to go, like, I mean, in the bull market, you flip everything, and it was great. And now it's more, everyone really likes MCP, and they like having their name on leaderboards and points. And I don't really care too much about points, because if there's any particular drop that I want, there should be two different ways of getting it. There should be a queue, and then they'll be betting MCP points, and then betting not your OMI, but the bronze tickets, which you can buy with OMI. And I'll have enough OMI where if I really want something, I could just use the bronze tickets and get it. If we talk about what it is now it's more, I just want to be in the top 500 wallets. So I've been, I think I taught around the Akomi verse. I've been buying Squirrel Girl comics and the first appearance of Jeff the Land Shark, things that, like, nobody cares about, even though I love those stories. They're cool characters.
Yeah.
So now I'm up to like 900 something collectibles, between collectibles and comics. And I'll get up to 1,000 at some point. Once I get crypto pay in, they're hurting themselves by not giving me crypto pay in. I want to get stuff. And that's my strategy now. I'll really collect what I like. A lot of it will be after OMI goes up. We get OMI to NFT and stuff like that. But I'll just collect what I like, and then pray for Nintendo and Pokemon at some point.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. I mean, people who watch your channel, or they know you, right? Like, they know that you made a pretty big bet on OMI, the OMI token, right? So with some of the setbacks that VeVe's had, such as there haven't been any new major exchanges like we were promised. We did get OKX, but I think people were expecting others. Significant delays on cash out, which we have now, but was significantly delayed. The MCP, which is now rolling out a little bit, OUP and other things. Has that ever unsettled you with how big that you went into VeVe and OMI, or any concerns there? I'd love, because here's the thing, right? You get called a moon boy all the time, right? Like, oh, Randy, he's just a moon boy, and he's just pumping his bags because he made such a big bet that it has to work out, and because he's all in. But, like, I'd love to hear, like, your thought process as you've seen these things happen, right? And it's talked about in the community, and, like, what your thought process is on that, because you're still buying, right? It would be one thing if you're like, I made this big bet and I'm not selling, because the token's down, but, like, you're like, oh, the token's down even more and I'm buying more. So I just want to get, like, your thought process behind all that.
Yeah, I'll in the next 9 to 11 days, I'll get a decent size check. I'll get another 5 million OMI. Will bring me up to 160 if the price stays around this point. And then maybe even more if Earth 2 lists their crypto, but that's in the future. I'll go and I'll say my analysis on why I made such a big bet, or was your question was do I have any regrets on it, or what?
Just
process?
Like, yeah, your thought process, like, as you've seen a lot of the delays and things not being completed, like, when they said they were going to be completed, what was your thought process in still being okay with that, I guess, and being like, you know what, like, not only that, but, like, I'm doubling down on this token and buying more.
So there's a couple of, I mean, I'll try to reference it to trying to get a really good looking girl to spend time with you, to date you. For for me, and which I think I represent a decent amount of guys that maybe get told no a lot, or just get declined a lot, is what happens if you ask 3 or 4 or 10 girls? Like a lot of times you're going to get a no, and I get more and more excited each time I get a no, because I know I'm that much closer to a yes. And have we gotten things eventually? Yeah, we had them delayed, but we had them eventually. I know we're going to go to the moon at some point. But I guess the question is why. So I'll say this. You have Lori Brenner was on the podcast recently after she had gotten back from Tampa, and she had gotten to party with Tom Brady, got pictures with him. I was like, I'm so jealous. And he did that autograph IO with his NFTs and Simone Biles and Tony Hawk, like all the goats of every single thing. He had made about 2,500 of his NFTs to go party with him, to go to his retirement party, do whatever. If you're including the ones that he after he tweeted with his 2 million followers, after Eva Longoria tweeted with her like 5 million followers, including the ones that they gave away, they only sold about 1,000 of those, and that's including the like hundreds they gave away. So it's clear that a lot of normies aren't in this yet. It's mostly Web3 people, but even out of that Web3 stuff, when you have other major licenses like the number 2 in the world is Hello Kitty, and then you have Nickelodeon and Rugrats stuff on top of that, going to Recur, and they're not doing so hot. I think the passes are like $35 to be able to mint, and there's no volume. I mean, a lot of people are trying to make comparisons. Quid, I think Quid made $50,000 in February. We made 12x that just today on the primary, not including secondary. So we're the clear winner. VeVe, I think, has won the decade so far as licensing and as far as revenue and the type of people that they have, or the type of community that they have. But I've said this before on Around the Okomiverse. You have to take a look at all of the money that's going to come into Web3 and the metaverse at large. If you wind the clocks back a couple years, or like a decade or two, I think $3 billion was spent on the first iPhone, and after that, Apple had not made any significant investments in that particular development of the iPhone. They do stuff with research and development, which they do for a lot of tax benefits because they don't get taxed on that. But every single new iPhone, for the most part, has been funded by the profits and sales of the previous one that came before it. And I'm saying that because that's a huge product that was started with just a couple $1 billion. I think Tesla that had like 25 billion that was invested into it. And then you have, I think, SpaceX or NASA, one of those two, which had quite a bit billions in that as well. So when I take a look at all of these, technology groups that are spending billions and billions and billions into their one specific area, and then I take a look at Mark Zuckerberg, who, love him or hate him, a lot of people hate him, especially Washington, like both sides of the aisle hate him. When he's made about, I think, 25 billion already in spending, and he's going to sustain that for the rest of the decade. And that's if he doesn't increase. If he doesn't increase that spending by the end of the decade, or in like 2031, he'll have spent about $250 billion on their metaverse. So far as changing their name from Facebook to Meta. What type of revenue, what type of return on investment do you think that they're going to get? Do you think that Web3 is going to get in general when you have one company in this decade that's going to spend $250 billion? That's a lot of freaking money. And if VeVe rests on their laurels and they take their foot off the gas, they'll by accident make 100 billion. They'll by accident be worth that 11, 12 figures, whatever it is. But them having, I think, already won the decade, the perfect balance of the CEO and COO, and that has every incentive to want to make the token rise at a commensurate rate at what VeVe should be evaluated at. Yeah, there's no question in my mind that this is stupid. These prices are stupid. I understand it if you are like, hey, you know, we were told X amount of years ago that there should be utility, and there's not utility anymore. There's less utility now than there was when we were able to buy gems with that, with OMI years back. I mean, look at what else they've done. This, in my opinion, I mean, looking at the KPI of like Sandbox and Decentraland and all the users there versus our users here, we'll have a $20 billion market cap for OMI very, very easily by next bull market. I'd say maybe even 30 to 50. And that's just the beginning. You know, the next bear market, I'll sell the bull and buy it there again. But I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to have OMI at $1 trillion market cap by the end of this decade. Because if you take a look at all of the money that's going to go into just crypto in general, I mean, I think all of the top 10 will have $1 trillion market caps, all the top 10 coins. Obviously, Binance and obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum will have multi-trillion, probably even $10 trillion market caps each. I think Ethereum will probably flip that at some point. I know I'm talking a lot, but this is like, that's my thought process on why this is so stupid undervalued. And, you know, why would you fold a winning hand? Why would you fold this? Yeah. So,
yeah. Well, you definitely threw out some really big numbers there. I'd have to do, and you know, that's one thing that I haven't done. Look, I think that the OUP, and we've talked about this on Around the Ecomiverse, right? Like, I think one of the biggest things of the OUP, apart from the VeVe and a lot of the stuff that, if that becomes big, what can also help burn circulating supply, but like those bronze tickets, like that's wild. But especially once we get into the VeVe, if there's an additional utility of whether you have an avatar, and depending on what NFTs you own, you might be able to get like the Miles Morales skin on your avatar or something, and that social flex that comes with that. I'm going to need to do an analysis of just some projections. Obviously, like there will be a lot of assumptions made in that, but to get to $1 trillion market cap, what the burns would have to be at the end of this decade, or where I think they could be. And then what that would value the OMI token at. And it's fun. We've obviously done some projections like in our little group of where we think OMI will be, you know, at the end of June, at the end of this year, you know, 2025 and forward. But then also, you know, saying like, you know, VeVe being you know, a $10 billion company and where those sales have to be. And like, fascinating. Yeah. But I appreciate that. And I think that it's important when people, they at least know your mindset on like why you think this is so undervalued there. And look, like there's a lot of things that VeVe has going for them, honestly. And I'm with you in the fact that there's been delays, and that's not optimal. But I've been in this space long enough, like invested in projects that like they were supposed to launch like a year ago. They still haven't launched their token. They haven't launched their token yet. And that's scary because like the longer they don't launch the token, like where are they getting the money and the funding to continue building, right? But they're still there and they're still doing things. Yeah, like things get delayed and it's not optimal. But do I think that they will eventually come out? Yeah, right. And I am starting to see like, look, the MZP, right? I'm super pumped. I'm like, even though it looks like some people are starting to get the updates to where it's updating and saying, here's what your daily point accrual balance is, right? I haven't gotten that yet. I just got my I'm a rank. Let's see. My MZP rank is still starter. It hasn't updated there. But my MZP level is 34. But even just seeing that and then seeing like Foster Hilt and some of these other people that I'm like, I'm just barely below you. Like I've started buying some more, you know, NFTs just to get those ranks. And that's just the tip of the iceberg to where I think if they can, and there's a risk that they won't be able to, but if they can meet all of those things, MCP, the OUP, more exchanges, I'm with you on the fact that I don't see how VeVe doesn't go massive, especially in a bull run, especially when people are coming in for the first time and then they're hearing, oh, there's a metaverse token that has all of that, like Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, like massive IPs tied to that token, that even just based on speculation, even apart from like the actual utility or the use case of using the OMI token to purchase NFTs or bronze tickets or all that stuff. I love it, man. So I wanted to touch on actually. So here's a question, and I'm just going to address this real quick. So Dano said, like, hey, I'd like someone to take a deep dive into OMI and potential regulation risk. If you look at the language in the Howey test, there's just no way it could be it would avoid being labeled as security. I'm not an attorney. I don't work for the SEC, right? But I have looked at the Howey test. I have done an analysis, and definitely, like, there are some things about the OMI token that, like, those prongs, the 4 prongs of the Howey test, where it could trip that. But there's a couple things. Just because the SEC says it's a security doesn't mean it's a security until they go and prove it in a court of law. And I think that's where, the SEC is starting to get tripped up. Yeah, they're sending all these Wells notices out to all these companies. In fact, I think it was Coinbase. I think Coinbase just got a Wells notice. Was it Coinbase? I saw.
There was a couple of them that got it. I don't know. I can't remember who it was. But.
Yeah. So, but some significant players in this space are getting Wells notices, right? And but like, how long have they been in a lawsuit with XRP trying to prove that XRP is a security token, right?
XRP's winning,
right? Like that's what we're starting to hear, right? Is that XRP does that. So what happens if XRP comes out and it says they're not a security? I think the SEC loses a lot of its power and teeth, right? Into making that case for anyone else. They've got to be on such solid ground, and they're going to be looked at and be like, how like, what amount of resources did you just waste and lose that case for 6 years or 7 years with XRP, right? So there's that. And then, but on top of that, like, OMI wasn't launched to U.S. citizens, right? It was raised outside of that. Now, if for some reason it was held, like, the SEC could say, like, this is an unregistered security. If U.S. residents want to purchase it, you're either going to have to register your token as a security, or you won't be able to buy and sell and trade it on as a U.S. citizen. So that's the impact, but they'll still have the rest of the world to do that. And I think that's truly so far down the road, if that even became an issue, that, like, for now, I'm not worried about it. I feel like OMI and a lot of the stuff they're going to be building out is going to be a lot of that's going to happen well before the SEC potentially even came after OMI. And then by then, VeVe has made so much money, they're going to have an excellent war chest, right, to also go to bat. And they're going to have Disney and all these other IPs on their side with that, hopefully, right? I mean, we'll see there. But so just wanted to answer that. So we've got, let's see. Randy, do you know this? Do you know the last time the circle chart was updated?
February 10th.
February 10th. So it's been a little while.
Huh. Yeah. So they're supposed to update it every month. So technically they haven't screwed up for like another 13 days or so, or 8 days or so, give or take. But I think that the reason why it hasn't been updated is because there may or may not be some changes actually to the development roadmap, like to the circles. I think overall it should probably be generally positive, but that'll be, yeah, that's my kind of answer. Maybe they're just waiting to get confirmation of which ones they can add or take away, because it's a beautiful, elegant thing, and it's like Constitution can always evolve and always be amended. So yeah.
Yeah, well, one thing that I like, I mean, I kind of, when it first came out, those circles, I was checking like every day, right? And I was like, oh, what's happening? But what I've kind of resorted to is I'm just looking at the updates to the app and things. That's part of the progress for me. I'm really starting to see the build out that Mitch is doing, and it's exciting, right? Yep. Like at first it was like, oh, people are being whitelisted for the MCP, which is just a beta, and really it was just like, hey, we calculated your points up to this date and it's stale. But now we're starting to see some people that's being updated now on a daily basis. They've got those points. I haven't gotten that yet. But that's what I guess what I care most about is I'm actually seeing progress, app updates and changes. And so I like that, the red circle thing, and that is fun. And yeah, hopefully we do see like another update to those red circles, and we're seeing some other things move there. But yeah, I appreciate that you knew that. Let's see. Okay, so Let's talk about the Disney Platinum moments. That when they announced that, it was funny. There was like this bipolar response from the community, right? Because you had people who were like, "What are you doing? The golden moments," and we saw the price dip significantly, right? On the golden moments on.
For which ones? I think Homer did a little bit, and
Well, I saw Walt dip, right? Walt dipped.
that was
Um,
a so there he dipped once because one person that had a bunch of them decided to list three of them at 2100. They got bought up within like 13 minutes, and it's actually up now. For it was I think 2500 when it was announced that it dipped to that 2100. It's up to 2700 now. So it's a it had recovered quite nicely. I think it might have done that because there was no Walt in the platinum moments, but uh, but yeah, the Walt is I kept an eye on that. I don't know about the others though. The others could have very well done taking a hit.
yeah. And I mean, I just saw, and that's the thing is, I saw some of the posts. I wasn't in the market actively looking at that, but people felt like, oh, this going to be a dilution, or now that there's these like there's more Disney moments, right?
Yeah.
Even if they're different characters. So there were some people freaking out and being like, you're diluting that, and then other people are like, oh, this is great. Like I'm really excited for this drop, especially. And I want to get your thoughts on like what do you think about the potion and the burn mechanism? Yeah, and do you think that impacted this platinum moment selling out, or yeah, just love your thoughts on this whole announcement that they.
The potions probably didn't impact it. Well, I was surprised this sold out because what my line of thinking was for the blind box, okay, everyone's gonna degen gamble to try to get the Dumbo or the Mini because those will definitely go above retail. I was not expecting Donald or Mickey to be above retail at all. I expected them to be below it because of the blind box. That's what you'd think. And then when they had shifted, which I was impressed with because they literally came out with a Twitter space saying that like on one day on that Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
and they were saying, "Oh, hey, this is like this, in a blind box." And then within in like 15 hours, they took it off the app. They changed it to not a blind box, and they just pivoted really quickly. I'm not sure of the reason.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if maybe one of us can ask them at some point. But they did that extraordinarily quickly. I feel like you can't really do that quick if you're in most multi-billion-dollar companies that have a lot of red tape. But they did, and now everything's above retail. When they changed that, I figured the Mickey and Donald the secondary would probably be at retail because you're not going to buy a Mickey or Donald on purpose and then immediately sell it for a huge loss. So people were selling Mickeys for like 52, but they're all above retail now. But the potions I'm really excited for because it's going to be what's that called? It's going to be a study on how people are reacting to other people using those potions in real time. Are people going to FOMO in? As they have 4 weeks to do it. So it might be a slow bleed of the potions. We have one here, we have one there. And then eventually towards the end of it, in like the last day or so, when you have, let's say, more than 60% of them done, and out of that 60%, they're on these three, and then one of them gets left out, that there's only like 100 posters of that one. That would be the rarest poster that Disney has. The rarest one now is Mini, I think at like 333 or 343, something like that. But with this, you could have the rarest poster that Disney has, and I think I'd be pretty excited. I want the Dumbo one. I would need to get the Dumbo one for it though. But I wish that we would always have the potion that we could touch it in 4 years and it would still be because that's sealed product, and now we can't. So I'm a little salty about that, but I was wrong about the blind box thing. So maybe I'm wrong here. I don't know.
Well, I was wrong about the blind box thing too, and I kind of it was interesting. Yeah, like I was upset. I was upset, and I'll say part of my premise was right. I do believe that bots got a lot of the Dumbos,
Mm-hmm.
and that's of course that's what they're going to target, and that was I think that was my frustration is I'm like, now I have no chance. I still went for the Dumbo and didn't get it, but I was like, on principle, I have to go for the Dumbo there. And so ironically, here's the thing. I would have happily spent the $60. Well, two things. I was frustrated that they didn't change the price, because typically when you have individual ones, right, at different mint sizes, they change the price. So, Mickey maybe would have been $30, Donald 40, Minnie 50, and, or Dumbo, or whatever, however they want to change that, but they didn't. And it was still all $60. And that, I didn't like that, to be honest. But with the blind box, I was like, look, I have a chance. And honestly, I think these are cool. And so for $60, yeah, I'll do it. But then, like, when I didn't get the Dumbo on the drop, even when the other things like went below retail, I was kind of just like salty about the whole experience. And so I'm just like, didn't buy any, and I'm not buying any now. Like, I'm not gonna spend that money for it right now above retail. And here's why. I do believe that once the power of the potion is gone, and people have either burned the potion, right, and gotten the posters or not, I think that those are going to fall significantly in price. At least the Mickeys and the Donalds back to under retail. And that's my supposition is that they're above retail still, because some people are hoping to get the potion and do that. But if they don't get the potion on the drop and they're not willing to pay whatever the price is on the secondary, then they're just going to say, well, like, now I don't want this anymore, or I'm willing to sell it for less. But it's an interesting psychological experiment. But I'm with you, like, in that. Why are they cutting off the power of the potion, to 4 weeks? Like, why isn't it into perpetuity? At any time, like, if you want, you can, but only for this set, right? You could win the potion and get that poster. I'd love to hear their thought process behind that. I know they alluded to the fact that there's probably going to be more potions, but if those potions are only going to work on certain collectibles anyways, like,
that shouldn't matter.
Why is there an expiration date on that? I'd love to hear comments from the crowd, right? Like, what do you guys think about this drop? Did you like that they pivoted with very short notice from Blind Box? And are you happy with that? Are you okay that you spent $60 when normally, like, there's a price variation depending on mint size? Love to hear from the crowd there.
I do want to push back on one point, though. When you said the Mickey and Donald might go below retail, I mean, they might, but when I go and take a look at, I used an example last night, the Charizard in the 25th anniversary that Pokemon did, everyone loved it, a couple $100 in PSA 10. And I feel like maybe they shouldn't, because that particular artwork, not Charizard in general, that had dozens of iterations throughout, the 25 years. But that particular artwork in Charizard had been done 7 times already. I mean, from base set, first edition, Shadowless, Unlimited, all the way through the 25th anniversary, there was no changes to that artwork at all. It is an exact reprint. The only difference is that you have a little Pikachu in the corner with numbers 2-5 as his red cheeks. So this Mickey, even though we've had like a dozen other Mickeys, especially with all the different poses and stuff, this is the 100th anniversary. That is very big. And Mark Hun made a very good comment saying, well, we're not going to be around for the 200th anniversary. So there's only going to be one 100th. There might be other Mickeys. I think this one is really special. I would actually put this one, I would put, partner statue, then maybe Steamboat Willie, and then this one. And then I would put the rest of the Mickeys below it. I think this is probably the third best one.
So are you saying just the Mickey, though? What about the Donald?
Yeah, I think all of these in this 100th anniversary, like already it is much scarcer than the Golden Moments, because in the Golden Moments, let's say 3,500 people could ever get that. I'm going to say even less. But in this one, 1,010 people could ever get the full set, because there's Dumbo, and there could be scarcer ones to come. So yeah, I think that's important, because they'll have iterations of every one of these characters in some form at another point in time, year or 2 years, whatever. but this is 100. So I think this is special.
I agree. I agree. It is special. Like, I guess my supposition right now is VeVe needs an influx of additional users to continue, because as they drop more, people are needing to put in more cash. And what we see happen time and time again is the newest drop loses its luster when there's a new bright shiny drop that they announce, and then so that they're selling those things. So again, I would love for you to be right, and I would love for that some of these things to retain their value. We just haven't seen it. Like I had the same conversation with people about the Lambo and how Lambo wasn't going to, but they're going to drop different versions of the Lambo. But you're right, like the 100th anniversary, like that is very specific and very different, right? So yeah, I hope that's the case. They look amazing, honestly, in the vaults and things. I've seen some of those pictures, and like they're very, very shiny and cool looking, and so and very special. And like it's been interesting, and I've loved hearing VeVe Magic talk about that. Right, it's just seeing the actual Disney fans and just how animated and excited they get about this stuff. So hopefully we can get some more of those normie Disney fans in here, and love to see.
I think kids are going to be really good with that, because there's this woman I know that's a dental assistant, and for like the last couple weeks, she's had at least one kid in the chair that she would include, like, hey, I'm about to go for this drop, and can you press the buy now button for me at 11 o'clock when it says to? And the kid's like, okay. And she would take pictures with the kids with the collectible, send it to their mom, and the kids are really happy. And then the moms would go and they would download the app, and they would buy stuff for them. So I think a lot of kids are really impressed with this stuff. So I'm very excited about that. But yeah, Disney people in general. But.
Well, I'm with you on that. So I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and so my 2-year-old is super into Spider-Man. He's got these Spider-Man pajamas, and he can kind of say, he's like Spider-Man. It's so cute. But like, man, and he has a short attention span, but anytime that he like sees me on my phone and I have like the VeVe app open, he's like Spider-Man, right? And he wants me to pull out like my secret rare Spider-Man, and he just wants to tap and tap and tap, and like we'll put him out into our living room in AR or something, right? And I had to stop. I'm like, bro, I can't do this anymore. But like he could have gone on for forever. And like my daughter was super pumped on I just blinked out on Encanto. What's her name?
Maribella?
Yeah, Maribel. She loves Maribel. And in fact, when we went to Disneyland last year, she wore like a Maribel dress, and she's constantly wanting to take pictures with all of that. So like I think over time, as people, especially this younger generation, grows up who is very comfortable with technology, we're going to see the normies more and more like look at what's out there in the NFT space or the digital collectible space and be like, well, I want the stuff that I know that's now nostalgic to me or that I grew up with. And VeVe holds all that. So that's super pumped on that. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit about the Binance NFT AMA. And everyone kept asking like, hey, when is this coming out? When is this coming out? And it was like, shout out to Danny the Bull, right? Because he's like, hey, did you guys know that the Binance NFT AMA is out? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And VeVe hadn't like retweeted it. Komi,
it took like 6 hours to retweet
it. Yeah. So first of all, what did you think about that? The fact that VeVe and Komi didn't retweet it for some time. But then I want to dive a little bit into that AMA and your thoughts on that.
I guess not retweeting it for some time is like, I also kind of blame Binance because they didn't really advertise it at all. I think they posted it, but they didn't tag VeVe in it. They didn't tag anyone in it. So I was like, all right. And then, which parts do you want to pick apart first? So the AMA, I loved it.
Well, so I want to know, let's like address like the biggest thing there. And that was, he's announcing some sort of phygital collab with like a AAA company, right? So I tweeted out my speculation as to who I think that could be. I happened to be at, like in the airport, and there was a big Lego store, and I was just like, "Oh, is this the collab?" Because I could definitely see. And then shout out to VeVe Fan Bam, because she was like, just a use case of that was like, okay, so what if you got the, like, you went and bought some Legos or something, you got this, but then you could get the VeVe logo, because David had that in the background during that AMA, the VeVe logo in Lego form. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. I know I took a screenshot of it. When was it? It's like a week ago. I have to go and try to find it. Okay, yeah, here it is. I see Astro Boy, not so subtle.
Hold on.
That's Lego?
That's my understanding. Like, that's what that looks like. No. No, it must not have been that one. Hold on just a second, because in my tweet, give me a second. My tweet, I'm gonna find this here. But why don't you talk about your thoughts on what that phygital collab could be? Because they had talked about some of the logistic problems of, okay, we're gonna have this physical piece, but people could just open it up and scan it, right, or get the code or whatever, and then collect the digital and ruin that, right? And so they were looking at the logistics. So they must have found some way to solve it. But want to know your thoughts on what that collab could be. Well, I pull up this tweet here.
Sure. It takes me back to like a year and a half ago. Walmart had tweeted about, or they posted on their Instagram, buying the Batman Who Laughs in like a physical form. Like, I'd like the same day that we had done our drop, and David had liked it or commented or something. So maybe it has something to do with DC. I mean, they have physical products with Hero. You can, I think even with Bat Cows, when they had an event at Spyscape in New York City, they had physical comics there that you could only buy there. And I freaking lost mine. I left it in the last house. Me and Rain bought like so many of them. But so that's one idea, doing something with DC via Walmart. Then you have Funko Pops, and then you have Lego. These are two things that could be. I mean, God, everybody buys Lego. Everyone loves Lego. Like there's a TikTok I saw the other day where is this guy is like, hey, girls that don't know what to get their low maintenance boyfriends or husbands, we like toys. We love Lego. Even if he says he doesn't like Lego, he likes Lego. So I think those would be my big three: something with DC or Lego or Funko. That's what I would say. And I also, if you have people are saying, oh, could we get all of them? I don't know if you necessarily need all of them. I mean, they're so heavy with licensors right now. And this is why I love that VeVe's making so much in this bear market, and why they're in Asia right now, or speculating why they're in Asia right now, is because if you go and if I'm VeVe and I'm talking to Nintendo, Pokemon, and anyone, doesn't matter, and I say that, hey, listen, we are in this bear market. We just made $600,000 in 15 minutes on this one drop. With Disney, we have a bunch of other licensors we haven't gotten to yet. You're trying to make this deal, and here's what we want. If you say no, we clearly have enough options to walk away. And if you decide to come back when hundreds of billions of dollars, probably trillions, are going into Web3 and going into us, and you're going to want to partner with the best, it's going to be 2 years later. We're going to be worth we're going to be worth billions more. And we're going to have that many more licensors. So this is the best deal you're ever going to get. That's a really good bargaining chip, I think, you have for VeVe. So at the same time, in that same breath, I'll say, why would you want the partnership with DC and, let's say, Walmart, and then Funko and like GameStop, whoever, and then Legos? I think you would only need one. And I think if you want one, you'd probably want the best. And I think Lego would be the best. So I would put my money on Lego. To get everything, I feel like it's just so much. I feel like it's just a lot. But again, that's just my opinion.
So here we go. So shout out to OMI Lover here, but here's that VeVe Lego logo, right? And VeVe Fan Bam was like, how cool would it be if like literally either you bought like some Lego digital version, but then you were able to actually get a physical like VeVe Lego logo. Or vice versa, right? Like you buy some Lego, or maybe you could buy this VeVe Lego thing, physically and then get the digital version. So
that
but
was
the
not
fact
in the
that he's
Binance
showing that,
interview.
no, you're right. You're right. I had assumed it was initially, but David loves those Easter eggs, and I did find it interesting that he had this VeVe logo with Legos in the back, and maybe he's going 4D chess in it, where he's like leaving clues on certain things in prior videos, announcing that, right, and then we forget about it. Anyways, like I just thought that was interesting, and had to share that there.
Yeah,
So
I mean that one did have the Oswald stuff. So maybe if that was before the Oswald drop, then you could definitely say, oh yeah, we got Oswald. What's right behind it? That'd be dope. I think that'd be
yeah,
really fun.
yeah, it's definitely. I love the speculation, and I think that that's part of the thing is truly VeVe could potentially land anything, right? And that's it. Look, I mean, it's funny to me, some of these other YouTubers who are obviously getting paid to talk about other projects there, and that's been funny. And I love that. Look, go out and make that bread, right? Like, honestly, like, props to them for being a platform that these companies want to go and promote. But I do have a problem when they are promoting this, and they're showing all of the good about a project, and then talking about all what they think is all of the bad about another project, but not talking about the bad of the project they're getting paid to talk about, right? And presenting the whole picture.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. Like, look, I think Quit's come a long way, honestly. Like, props to them. They have some major backing with Animoca Brands, and partnership with Sandbox because of Animoca Brands and the stuff that they can do, and it's fairly cheap. But like you said, like the amount of money that they're making is pretty minimal there. And do I really care that I can have kind of like a Minecraft character type looking guy, non-IP, in the sandbox? Like,
Yeah.
for me, no. And then not sure. He's the one who's done. It's so funny. I don't know if you know, not sure. He's the one who's done like the weird looking like Mickey Mouses and things like. I'd have to find him, but he was like, I went to the sandbox, right? Like I did this, I downloaded everything and got some of these things, and I went into the sandbox, and like no one was there. It was not fun. It was the worst, right? And I think about the community that the VeVe community, and once VeVe drops that VeVe verse, there are going to be so many people there. But not only that, the people that you already interact with on Twitter, right? So you're going to know these people. So there's already an automatic community, which Sandbox didn't do, right? They didn't have a community built out, and that is the difference. And that's what I think like VeVe has on everyone else is that sometimes rabid community, for better or worse.
Speaking of Rambo, sorry, we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that? Like, there's been some other announcements that VeVe is dropping some things.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Sandbox, and so Ubisoft, like so many others, like Lamborghini, like they've tried launching their own NFTs, and Ubisoft literally rugged their first NFT. That was with what was it from? It was Dark Knights on. It was one of their games that they'd had for like 2 years. They'd promised like a X amount of year roadmap, and like even though we are no longer moving forward with our roadmap, you have your place in history by having one of these NFTs. Like, oh my God. So they started again, I think earlier this year with Rabbids. And they did it with Sandbox as well. And they sold them, I think, at the time for 100 sand, which is like $78. And now they're like 65, or that would have been 65 in today's dollars because the price went down, but they're selling on OpenSea. There was 2,209 of them, I believe. And there are, like the last sale was, I think, for 32. It was $32. So, I mean, they're still, the volume's not really there that much anymore. But again, it's because I think they were with sand, and you can actually use them to earn more sand, but the amount of time you have to use to get that sand probably isn't worth it. But I'm very curious to see. This is an actual one-for-one thing that they're doing. Hey, they released on the their own with Sandbox. You could actually use them interoperable with Sandbox. You can earn sand with them. And I want to see the volume that they're going to get now that they're on VeVe. So this is not a first appearance of them. So I would like to see something that VeVe's getting almost like sloppy seconds, not a first appearance. There's probably going to be more additions. We can get more volume and more excitement and more hype around that. That immediately confirms everything that we already believe, that we're going to be much bigger than Sandbox, which the Sand token was up like what was it, like $9 billion it was worth. Their market cap last bull run. We get 10 billion, that's 3 cents, and that's without any burns. So yeah, I'm wonder why I'm so bullish. So that's I'm excited.
So, well, here's a question for you. Speaking of the Sandbox, right? So one of the projects that I love, and I actually co-hosted with Crypto Rain, and we interviewed the CEO of Animal Concerts, and I know that they have partnered with Decentraland, Sandbox, and Blocktopia to hold concerts in the metaverse. So do you think if Sandbox is able to get some of that stuff first and bring people in, do you think at that point that they could maybe be competition that way, or what are your thoughts on if they're able to? Because VeVe's talked about, hey, we're going to do music verticals, right, and sports verticals, and what does that look like? And or could we see music concerts in the VeVe verse? Or like, yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on that with that partnership that's already announced, because Animal Concerts has some major musicians lined up, right, ready to do concerts in the metaverse. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
So I think Snoop Dogg and Paris Hilton have already done stuff in Sandbox, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they've actually, if the concert, I could be wrong, someone comment below if I am wrong, but I think they've already actually done concerts in that particular metaverse. Maybe it was Decentraland, but I don't think it is. My friend Janine, had her on the podcast last year at some point. Janine Yorio is a CEO of Every Realm that she had at one point the most amount of land in Sandbox. I think she was dethroned recently by this Russian guy. And so all of these, Earth 2, Decentraland, Sandbox, there's a lot of hype around them, and I think there's still money to be made in some of these things, but in my opinion, the real hype is going to be around IP worlds, where again, Snoop Dogg could have his own Snoop Dogg world in Sandbox. I don't know what chain or where Wendyverse is going to be on, but I don't know if you've seen the trailer for Wendyverse. It's
I haven't.
You can like take your fries and throw them into shakes. You could like do sports. You could play like shuffleboard with burgers. It looks really cool. I'm really pumped for it. But I think IP is king, and even though Sandbox could be in the top 5, probably, I think it's not really gonna. I feel like everything's gonna be miles behind of what VeVe is. I would say between Sandbox, Decentraland, anything else that you have, Sandbox will probably be very competitive and take market share, maybe away from a couple of those things, but. Even trying to look at it from an outside point of view, I don't know, do I want to be in a place where you have maybe, I don't know how many active users they have each month, where, I could hang with my friends, but I could hang with my friends anywhere. I could do it and also be in these IP worlds where, oh, hey, I have a Superman that I can talk to that is backed by AI. This basically has ChatGPT in him, and you could ask him a question and he'll answer it as Superman. Any way I think you slice it, and most of these people could have partnerships with, like, you have Matt Gondek that has partnerships with VeVe and Coinbase. You have Amar Singh, who through Rewind Collective has partnerships with VeVe and Coinbase. Like, you have so many of these other ones that can do that, but so I could see all of them being partnered with Sandbox, with Decentraland, and VeVeverse as well. But at the end of the day, where are they going to make their money? And in my opinion, I think that's going to be VeVeverse. But again, that's just my opinion.
So while you were talking, I looked. I know that Snoop Dogg announced having a concert in the metaverse. I didn't see any news about him actually holding the concert or doing the concert. I think he had done some sort of music video. with his voxel character or something, and maybe
Mhm.
like in his house or something. But yeah, I like your point, and this is the biggest thing, right? Is people are going to want to go to the metaverse where there are other people. And so we're it's not so sure when he was like, yeah, I downloaded it, I went in there and there was just no one there. So then he left, right? But like once the VeVe comes out, there's already going to be a core group of people. And just like people who are finding VeVe for the first time, and they walk into those VeVe Twitter spaces, right? And they're just welcomed with open arms. And like, that's what's going to be. They're just going to walk in and be welcomed like that. Where are these companies going to make the money? Where the people are, and so yeah, I'm extremely bullish with you on that. So with that, Randy, I know that you are a busy person and have a lot to do, but I just wanted to open the floor to you just to talk about any other topics. I'm good to go for a little bit longer as well, but I'd typically at the hour, I want to make sure that we're still good, or how you're feeling.
I can go all night. It's been, yeah, no, I mean, maybe I'll make a video after this, but I'm pretty free all night. I want it. So, I was curious about, and maybe I should just get you on the podcast one night when you're free. I know you're also very busy, but you could write like a shot salami on like banking and on regulation and on things. And I'll VeVe hasn't officially confirmed that they weren't tied up with anything in SVB or whatever. I'm telling you that 99.999% sure they're probably not tied up with them. Just so everyone's feeling safe. What do you think some of the possible ramifications are with these like 5 banks going under and having to? I mean, I know, there's $1 million bets that Bitcoin will go to $1 million. There's also bets being made that it goes back down to 12.5. What do you see happening on a geopolitical scale now that a bunch of these smaller banks are, people had a run on them? I know historically you had runs on banks all the time 100 years ago, but now it could be coordinated attacks. It could be done a lot quicker. And do you think we just go to the big 4? The Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, or is Bitcoin the people's champion? Curious your thoughts.
So I listened to the Bankless podcast recently with the gentleman. I don't know how to say his name. Balaji. I can't remember, but he was the one who made the bet on. I'll bet you within 90 days, that Bitcoin is worth $1 million. And basically, so someone's got to post one Bitcoin, and then he's posting $1 million US dollars. Because his thought is that the US dollar is going to hyperinflate and that $1 million won't be worth anything, but Bitcoin will be worth $1 million in 90 days. And a lot of his premise was founded on the guy is really smart, but he is missing a lot, and he's making some assumptions that are just factually not correct. So So, for example, he says that, it was the regulators. So one of the things, we'll back up, and maybe we should have a completely separate podcast on that. Because like this is all about you, man. Like this episode's all about you. But just real quick with that is, he kept saying that the regulators were the ones. Again, I got to back up. So one of the things that happened was you had these banks that went long and bought longer maturity U.S. Treasury bonds, right? And they locked in that interest rate that they would receive for those assets. But what they had is they had these deposit liabilities, right? That maybe they were paying, you as a depositor, they're paying 1% on your deposits annually, right? But with Silicon Valley Bank, there's a couple things that could have happened, right? For example, venture capital groups or these tech firms, they're burning cash like crazy. And so they're drawing deposits down as they're trying to build in things. But funding is drying up at the top and they're not getting the inflow in, they're not raising additional capital. So then the deposits are coming back and money is slowly going out of Silicon Valley Bank. You can also have tech firms who are like, well, we're only getting 1% here or maybe 2%, but we can go to XYZ Bank and get 4%. So we're going to withdraw our hundreds of millions of dollars worth of deposits, right? And we've got so the bank they have to do one of two things, right? They've either got to sell their assets, some assets, because you've got assets equals liabilities and stockholder equity. And so if some of their liabilities go away, well, then it has to be on the asset side that they've either got to sell some assets to bring that back down, to pay out those liabilities. And that's typically in cash, right? Or your securities portfolio. That's what they typically liquidate that are easily convertible to cash to pay out those depositors. Or you've got to borrow more money to do that, right? And so you saw with Silicon Valley Bank, where basically they started to have this outflow of deposits, and they were like, we're running out of actual cash, but all of our like the next available thing that's cash is our held to maturity securities that they were buying at that 2% of the treasury. But then as the Fed raised the rates, now the rates are at 5%. Well, guess what? If you try to sell a 10-year treasury bond that's only paying out 2% when the market now is paying at 5%, well, you've got to sell that at a discount, right? Mm-hmm. So the actual market value of that security has dropped significantly. And basically Silicon Valley Bank is like, hey, we're selling like our entire held to maturity security portfolio. We're going to take a $2 billion loss because they need the cash to pay out depositors, which then panicked the market. And then on top of that, they're like, oh, and we're going to try to raise some capital, which is that stockholders' equity, right? That was how they were going to kind of balance that instead of selling additional assets to do that. So you had that combined with the fact that you got like someone like Peter Thiel being like, hey, I just tried to like move some money around and there was like a blip and everyone pull your money out, right? And now in the digital age,
everyone,
So here's where his assumptions were wrong. He was saying the regulators made it so that banks could hide those losses of those securities basically by moving like available for sale securities to held to maturity. So available for sale securities, they're mark to market, meaning that like in real time, they've got to value those, but because they're not selling them, it can either be an unrealized gain or an unrealized loss that then flows over into capital levels. And so it can impact their capital levels. And so what the banks did is they're like, well, we're going to move them to held to maturity so that we're not impacting the capital, right? And they're like, well, the regulators did this. And it's like, well, that's wrong. Like that's an accounting principle. And the reason that is for banks who historically could hold those to maturity, why were they going to get penalized on capital when they were planning to hold them to maturity? And honestly, as long as they were managing their assets and liabilities and that interest rate risk correctly, there's no impact to that. And that's just like one example, but he kept going through like it was like some conspiracy theory that like the regulators were all about manipulating it to make these banks fail. And it's like, that's not at all what happened, right? If a bank mismanages their assets and liabilities, like, I don't understand how that's the regulator's fault. Like the regulators should come in and they should be in there trying to say like, well, we're going to try to catch any issues that we see here. But anyways, this is a very long answer and why it could definitely be like a separate podcast on it. But I think for now, we're good. So the Bank Term Funding Program, BTFT, that the Fed has put out, it's a 1-year loan. That's what it is. It's not into perpetuity. And so they're like, yeah, is this another form of quantitative easing? Yeah, but it's short term because the banks have to pay it back, right? And so like if they were just like, hey, we're going to give this to you, but ultimately you're not going to have to pay it back, well then yeah, that would be a form of quantitative easing. like a long term, but this is a very short term. And so he's sitting here saying that it's going to balloon and that there's going to be hyperinflation because we're just going to have to keep printing money and that everyone's going to be panicking. You know what? This was, from my perspective, very isolated to kind of the crypto industry and kind of the fintech firm, and combined with the balance sheet of these institutions that kind of created this mess. And then the FDIC came in and said, we're going to share all the deposits of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank to stop potential contagion. So right there, if they wanted all of the things to go into these 4 banks, right, so that they could have the CBDC, they wouldn't have done that, right? They wouldn't have done that. So anyways.
I appreciate that answer. And yeah, I should definitely have you on the podcast at some point. And then I feel like, I don't know if you have a TikTok, you should totally make one and just put them into like little sound bites, be like, what really happened, part 1. I feel like you'd get a whole bunch of followers really quickly. Each video make like 90 seconds or 3. I think you can make a video like 10 minutes now on TikTok. Are you on there?
I don't trust China. No, I am not. I am not on TikTok.
So I completely understand. Like I got emails in like 2016, like, okay, no TikTok on the flight line, no TikTok on any type of secure place that, you know, phone's not supposed to be. It's like, okay, I get that. Same Pokemon Go. But I'll say right now that TikTok is one of my biggest forms of entertainment. Mostly what I think I'm reminded of is you have a chandelier in the background. I don't know do you like wrestling in WWE?
I loved Hulk Hogan when I was a kid. Like I watched, like I watched WW. Well, I'm trying to remember what it was called.
WWF back in the day.
Yeah. So I did watch some, but I haven't kind of looked at it recently.
So there's these people, God bless them. I don't know how they take these 30, 45-minute matches and they break them down into like 3 minutes, and giving you like all the best parts. And for some reason, all of these people that are copying this person, they have Sia in the background, like singing Chandelier. So you're just seeing like these 2 epic ogres like do battle and go to war, and they're bloody, and then all you hear in the background is and it just gives me life. I just love everything about those. I saw a video the other day where Hulk Hogan came out. It was against Macho Man Randy Savage, and he had it was the first time that he had come out on his on that music, like I am a real man, you know, that one. And it was the crowd just going wild. I love stuff like that. So I'm on wrestling TikTok now. They get you on the algorithm. What about you? What are some of your I guess guilty pleasures, or I guess pleasures that people don't know about?
I will go down, I guess, like on Facebook, like I do go down kind of like the rabbit hole of different videos that pop up. I'm trying to think, man. Like I got 2 little kids. Like they keep me so busy. I don't have a lot of time. So like I actually like gymnastics. I was a gymnast back in the day, competed and took 3rd in state overall. And I loved it. And so recently got my daughter into that. And so it's kind of funny, man. I'm getting old, bro. Like, and okay, so here's a funny story. And no one really in the VeVe community knows this, but like with decon, I'm like, dude, I'm so out of shape, but I'm going to get my standing back tuck back for decon so I can whip that out, right? And that'd be a lot of fun. Do some breakdancing moves and things. So I went to this gym where I started taking my daughter and was doing it. Now gymnastics floors, they're a lot more springy. But so I was landing my standing back tucks on there. Not very well, but like I was rotating enough around and I was landing on my feet, but I was kind of like lower and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so I did that 1 week and I'm like, I'm just going to build up that muscle. But I was really sore after that first week, right? Just like my abs had not been worked out like that in like a decade. And so then the next week, the last backflip that I did that first week kind of tweaked my abs like a little bit. So I was like, oh, well, I won't do it. But like decon was coming up and I'm like, I got to get this out. So I legit, like the next week, I was working it and like my 3rd backflip, I legit had like level 2 tear of my abs, like
Oh my
internal
God.
bleeding. I was like on the ground. I was like, ah. Like, I was so pissed, and so I'm just barely getting back into. I'm like, you know what? I'm just not as young as I used to be, but so like I want to take my daughter to like girls gymnastics meets and stuff like that. Like I used to actually coach beginning and intermediate gymnastics courses at the university when I attended there as well. So like super into that. But and then I spend so much time on crypto and researching things. Like if people ask me what my guilty pleasure is, like normies, like that's what I tell them. I'm like, it really is like crypto is what I have time for on top of my kids. A little bit of gymnastics there. Um, I don't even get to play video games much anymore. And I used to do that, like Gears of War. Me and my buddies once a month used to all get together and just like play Gears of War until 4 in the morning. But
That's amazing.
so WWE for you, what else are some of the things? And I want to talk about this a little bit too because you're retired, man. Like so, you're
Yeah.
retired. You have this open day, and I was trying to like in my mind be like, all right, if I was straight up retired, obviously I'd be like, oh yeah, like I'd go to the gym, and I would eat more healthily. I have a desk job and I'm constant I just don't get to move around as much. I would definitely do that. But then I'm like, all right, so that's like 2 hours of my day. Like, what am I going to do with like the rest of my day? So what's it like a day in the life of Randy Chavez and being retired, man?
Well, that's changed quite a bit over the years. It was in 2021, I had just decided to go and visit most of my friends that I'd served with and, scattered all over the world. They are, a lot of them are in Europe, a lot of them are throughout the States. I haven't gone to Japan yet. I still have a bunch of friends in Japan that aren't, that I haven't seen in a while. So that I did a lot of traveling in 2021, and I also had um, I had a girlfriend as well, and that was that. So a lot of time went to that, and unfortunately, a lot of unhealthy time. Like we would we would eat out or get food delivered, like, and it was not healthy. We would drink, and like I'd go over on a Friday and would stop drinking on Sunday morning because I had to drive back on Sunday night. Um, and then outside of that, it was I did okay for a while working out. But it was now it eventually it got to the point because we're in that bull market where I was streaming for 3 hours in the morning for the drop and talking about other stuff. I would make a video. I'd go to the gym. I'd do whatever, and then I'd stream for 3 hours at night. And because there was always people there, and I was getting super chats at the yin yang, and I was like, okay, well, that pays for pretty much everything. So I wasn't really spending a lot. I would also take whatever Pokemon cards I would still have, and I would sell those. But then my voice really started hurting because my throat was, I was talking for like 7 hours a day, and I was just, it just got destroyed. So every now and then I'll do like these long podcasts. I'll do like a 6 or 12 or 69-hour podcast. And, now it's just been after the breakup last year. It's been, I wish I was more productive. I've been more productive this last few weeks. But during the fall of crypto, and now it's like, okay, and YouTube decided to just go, for me, for a lot of people doing this. So it's like, okay, YouTube's not really making money. What can you do? And I was private investigating before I went into the military and some afterwards. So now every now and then I'll take a job. Every now and then when you don't see Chavez for a couple of days or a week, I'm doing something. The trying to spend time with friends, that's always fun. But also now I have some whales that I help advise, and it's when somebody, at least in my position where I'm just a YouTuber, and you have these people that are extraordinarily well connected in the world, and they have a whole bunch of money. When they call, you kind of feel very obligated to answer. And fortunately / unfortunately, they're separate There are two separate groups, and then there's I'm also friends with them now. So it's 2 months ago, yeah, in January, I had one of the whales from middle of the country decided like, hey, we're gonna be in New York, come grab dinner with us, and it takes me like 2 hours to get to the city because I have to take like a 20-minute something Uber ride to the train station, and then an hour and a half ride from the train station to Penn Station, and then he's like, okay, we're pack your bags, you're gonna come to Ohio for a couple of days, and I should have said Ohio. You come to Ohio for a couple of days, and you're gonna go. We have a bunch of the brethren court are gathering, and you need to go and keep us updated on what's happening with VeVe. I was like, okay. So I flew out there on like a private jet, which was great, and then he flew me back like first class on the way back, and the trying to get into this world or trying to kind of like fake it till you make it. Like I feel like if I ever had imposter syndrome, it's when I talk with people that I mean, one person we know has been on the podcast that he was at New York City Comic-Con one night, the Greg Schultz, who's Biden's campaign manager, and it's just I don't know, we have all these people that was like, oh hey, here's the former state treasurer of Ohio, here's the this person runs a $80 million company, and it's like, okay, I'm just I'm a YouTuber, like I almost feel like I'm never worthy. So I've been trying to really listen to like David Goggins a lot and just get that motivation, and just like just doing a thing where I feel worthy enough to be a part of certain people's circles. Because I'm just at the end of the day, I'm just I'm a nerd, I'm a dork. I love all things Nintendo. I love video games. I love Pokemon. And I don't know. I feel like I don't. Someone asked this on TikToks, like, how old do you feel? And I was like, whoa, I haven't been asked that question, I think, ever. And sometimes I feel like most days I feel like I'm like 15, 16. I don't know. Do you ever feel like you should be where you are? You ever feel like you should you deserve to be where you are? I don't feel that. I don't feel that at all.
Well, I'd say this. I think part of our culture, the American culture, is right that we it's bad to acknowledge your accomplishments, because if you do, then somehow you're arrogant or cocky, and that's not good. I mean, there's a way to go about acknowledging your accomplishments without coming across as condescending, right? But like we haven't really differentiated that. Most people are just like, oh yeah, he's talking about this, oh he's so cool, and it's like, no, absolutely we should be able to highlight our accomplishments and feel good like that. But like the other part is like, just because someone has money doesn't mean that they're worthy of our, like, being in our circle, right? For me, it boils down to like, who is this individual? I don't care if they're worth $1 billion or they're worth negative 100,000, right? Like, what value do they bring to my life? Like, as a friend, is a friendship or the information, or like whatever it is, right? But I don't know, Randy. Like here's the thing that just me, and this is for everyone watching this video. If you ever get a chance to meet the real Randy Chavez in real life, like, genuine people that I've ever met, honestly, the guy just cares. Like, I love it. I'm so stoked to have you on my channel, man. Yeah, like it's incredible. And so to me, it's sad. It's sad to see someone like you, who, honestly, man, you've busted your butt. You're one of the hardest working YouTubers out there. You've had some incredible people on your channel, right? Because you're not afraid to ask, and you've got a lot of experience in life experience to offer people, and you understand some of the web3 things, and especially like VeVe, and so someone who's into VeVe and all about it. I don't know. There's just so much to you, and so many layers, and just in people in general, that don't ever discount yourself, I guess is where I'm going with that, man. Just because someone has a higher net worth than you, that's meaningless. And anyone, honestly, that that's the criteria. If you don't hold this amount of money, I don't want you in my circle. Then like, that's not the type of person I want to be around, because that's so shallow, truly, for me. So I'll tell you what though. And then with this, I've got to end. My wife has called me
Yeah, I saw that message. Sorry, I just saw it.
multiple times. I got to talk to those kiddos before, is where is it going with that, man? I just blinked out for a second.
Don't discount yourself. And
yeah, well, I guess at the end of the day, anyone who's not willing to give you the time of day, like they're not worth it. And you've done so much, dude, and I appreciate your friendship, and everyone out there who's watching. I really wanted Randy to be one of the earliest people that I was able to get on this channel and to do these highlights, because I think that he has added a lot of just kindness and optimism. And yep, like to some, he's a moon boy. And although maybe I don't necessarily agree with some of his projections, I think he's still on this. I still agree with a lot of like where he's going with that. And I hope he's right. And I'm putting my money there too, right? Not financial advice, but I am buying OMI. I am buying VeVe still. And at these prices, I'm doing that. And so overall, I am bullish on that. And, but yeah, Randy, you and I will have to chat some more offline.
Yes.
But thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Shout out to Jordan. He's been so great at the support, and also a plug for Jordan. Every Monday on his channel, they do an Around the Comey-verse, and we have people like me, Randy, Kyle, Tiger Wilson, Crypto Rain. We've had Lori Brenner on there. They just had NFT Pirates, had Reese. So it's great. And he does a lot of work, and the topics that we talk about, it's good. So shout out to him. But again, yeah, make sure you smash and like that button, and subscribe if you've enjoyed the content so far. I'm planning on having even more VeVe influencers in the space. And if you guys have any ideas of who you want me to reach out to and talk to, I've already got a list of people I want to do, but just let me know. So thanks again. And with that, we're going to close it out. So take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.